Gregg is a Republican senator from New Hampshire and the ranking member on the Senate Budget Committee. Senator, welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I want you to explain to something that the CBO director, Douglas Elmendorf, said today about this tax hike.
As CBO has reported before, permanently or temporarily extending all or part of the expiring income tax cuts would boost output and employment in the next few years.
So where's the big question? Why don't we just do it? Why is Congress taking so long to deal with these tax cuts? Couldn't you come to some kind of conclusion, some kind of compromise before the election?
Well, he's right. If we extend the tax cuts, we'll cause greater economic activity, which is exactly what we want, of course. We're in an economic slowdown now. Raising taxes would make that slowdown even more severe, something we don't want to have happen. And so we should extend these tax cuts. The problem is that going into this election, the Democratic leadership, the liberal leadership of the House and the Senate, and the presidency for that matter, are going back on their old play card, which is to have class warfare. They claim that they don't want to raise taxes for the wealthy when, in fact, people making more than $250,000 are, for the most part, small businesses that create jobs in America. And we actually don't want to be dampening down their willingness to go out and create jobs. But they want to raise taxes on those folks. We think it's a mistake. We think the way you address the deficit and the debt is to control spending. One of the most interesting things Mr. Elmendorf said was that we primarily have a spending problem.
Right. Well, Senator, you got to agree with him there. We really do have a spending problem, too.
It's not. We're not undertaxed.
I want to take you to some of these issues, though, with the high tax bracket that you were just discussing and show you some numbers here. What's really going to happen to marginal tax rates on people in the $250,000 plus category? Those rates are actually going to go up to something very close to 50% when you factor in extra Medicare taxes, Medicaid taxes that come in 2013. Do you think people really understand what we're going to be on the hook for when you combine income taxes and taxes from health care reform?
Well, and if you throw on top of that state and local taxes, you're well over 50% in some jurisdictions. In New York City, for example, the rate would be somewhere up around 67%. Now, what's the incentive for someone to go out and create a job, to make that investment, to take the risk if they know that the government's going to take 67 cents of the next dollar that they earn? It's not a whole lot, quite honestly. But our friends on the other side of the aisle really haven't learned that lesson yet. They still believe that there's no end to invading the taxpayer's wallet, and there's no end to spending money. The real issue here is spending, not taxes.
You know, you were recently asked about using reconciliation to bring health care reform to its knees. Is that something that the Republican Party might do after the November elections if they had the votes to carry it off?
Certainly reconciliation is an option for controlling entitlement spending, and of course this welfare, not the welfare bill, but the health care bill is specifically an entitlement program. It's a brand new major entitlement program. It's going to cost $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. It's the most expansive event in the history of our country relative to the growth of government. And so, yes, reconciliation would and should be available as a way to try to get that program straightened out, make it affordable.
That's a very dramatic thing to do, though. I mean, when the Democrats did it, nobody was happy. Do you expect Democrats to be happy if you use reconciliation, their own tricks on them?
Well, you got to remember the way the Democrats did it. It was they said they were going to save $1 billion while they spent $2 trillion. So they took a little different approach to reconciliation that's never been taken before. They used it as cover for new spending. I think a Republican Congress would use it as a way in the way it was supposed to be used, which is to control spending, and especially entitlement spending. That's where the money is. That's where the action has to be taken if we're going to get this deficit and debt under control.
Well, you know, that brings me to the 2-year anniversary of TARP, not the world's most popular program, the bailout of the banks. What do you believe was done wrong and what was done right? Clearly, there were some problems because we still have banks failing at an alarming rate.
Well, actually, TARP did exactly what it was supposed to do, which was stabilize the financial industry and keep us from going over a cliff. I mean, we were on the verge of a financial collapse, the likes of which hadn't been seen since the Great Depression. Basically, Main Street would have been shut down. It was estimated that unemployment might have gone as high as 25% by one Secretary of Treasury. The simple fact is the TARP came in, stabilized the financial industry, and we've gotten almost all the money back that we put into the banks, and we've gotten it back with interest. So the tax, this is the first federal program I can remember where the taxpayers actually made money. Not only did they make money, but it did what it was supposed to do. Now, the automobile industry is a different story. We shouldn't have used TARP on the automobile industry. They shouldn't have gotten those funds. They did because of the influence of the UAW. That shouldn't have happened. But as far as banks are concerned, almost all the money's been paid back, and it's been paid back with interest. Taxpayers have made some money here, and we did stabilize the financial industry. By the way, TARP is over. It's dead. I mean, the law was repealed effective with the passage of the Financial Regulatory Reform Bill.
All right. Well, Senator, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Hope you'll come back.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I would love to.
Excellent. Health and